Hello indie game fans, while the fighting game genre is dominated by bigger games, indie developers are no slouch either, with a number of technically sound entries with developers that really love this genre, so here's a look at some of the best. Let's begin with Two Strikes, the follow-up to One Strike from 2017, currently in early access and is worth a play. This is a weapon fighter in the vein of Bushido Blade but in 2D, where battles can be determined by a single strike in a high-stakes game of chess. The art style is fantastic, contrasting the black and white characters with the coloured backgrounds, and while there are only 4 out of 6 playable characters in the current version, it's something different in the space which makes it of interest. Surprise! I bet that you didn't count on Fight Crab making the list, a fighting game in quotes where you embody an immortal crab who has to take out your enemies. It's a physics-based 3D brawler, so when weapons get thrown into the mix, things get really interesting, including swords, chainsaws and lightsabers, just to mention a few, where there are no health bars to speak of, and the objective is to flip your opponent over. Yes, it's a nonsense fighting game in the traditional sense, but that doesn't really apply when we're just talking about games which are pure fun, making it something to get that will appeal to a wider range of indie game fans. One of the smaller but well-made fighting games is Verdict Guilty, a pixel art entry set in futuristic Neo Seoul, pitting cops and criminals against each other. There are 4 characters from each side for a total of 8, where it does abide to genre conventions such as the level select screen. It feels like a title right out of the arcades, where there's a unique story campaign for every character, and it's pretty cheap as well, so do give it a go. If you're ever curious about fighting games, a fantastic entry to get the basics right is Fantasy Strike, one with a nice variety of characters and mechanics. It's a streamlined experience which can be solely played on a keyboard, so no fancy button combinations or quarter circle movements required, where the focus is on basics like zoning, footsies and so on. The characters are also conveniently grouped into their archetypes with a decent 3D art style and visuals. Do ignore the negative reviews since people are largely complaining about playing against humans being locked behind a paywall, but the developer has already given most of the game away for free, so why not give it a go? If you're intimidated by fighting games, perhaps try Dive Kick first, a 2-button game that's basically jump and attack, having you nail the basics and is an introduction to the genre, although the sheer variety of insane characters makes it of interest. The next title is currently in early access, but what's already in Punch Planet is showing the potential to be something special. It's a sci-fi entry with currently 8 playable characters, where the developers are working on the core mechanics first and does not currently have a story mode. However, it does come to us from 3 developers who seem to love this genre, I believe having been competitive players at some point in time, so for them to make a fighting game is exactly what the genre needs. Excellent so far, with updates coming at a steady clip. This will be one to watch in the months to come. I last talked about Blade Strangers in my video on Shovel Knight crossovers, where this genre is just perfect for them, and this is an example of a crossover extravaganza due to the IPs and characters involved. On top of Shovel Knight, we do have characters from Cave Story, Code of Princess, The Binding of Isaac, Azure Striker Gunvolt, and more, where I do enjoy this aspect of fighting games, which makes this one to get. Technically, it's a little more simplified on the control scheme end of things without complex inputs, but does have extensive story campaigns for every character. It is a smaller title, so you might have some trouble finding an online match, but still a good one to pull out for local play. I did a quick poll on the community tab where you folks voted in favour of including platform fighters on this list, the first of which is Roof Reach, a pixel art title with a martial arts theme. Super Smash Bros. Definitely has had an impact on indie game developers, with many striving to make their own, where the example here is very well put together indeed. It has a roof towel throwing feature, wave dashing, parrying, and even a smash attack, which, combined with an extensive move list for every character, gives you plenty of options. I do think that the variety in characters is critical for all fighting games. If not, what's the point? Where this dates back to grander ideas of tournaments to prove which style of martial arts is the best, taken quite literally in this case. We have everything from samurai, ninjas, karate fighters, boxers, and even a sumo wrestler for a total of 13, so if you do love this subgenre, be sure to pick this up. When I got the news that the developer of Little Dew and Card City Knights were making a platform fighter, I was intrigued but had my doubts, which, fortunately, have been proven unfounded with the great reception that Slap City has had. It has an interesting 3D art style which isn't my favourite, but does seem to be mechanically and technically sound for fans of the genre. It stars recurring characters and enemies from their previous work, which you may or may not have affinity for, but there are some interesting and unique character designs. Some variety in the single-player campaign includes actually giving characters a personality, having side-scrolling platforming levels, and a unique campaign for each character, showing that the work indeed has been put in. Again, while there is online matchmaking, the player population could be low and is probably best in a local context with friends, but a well-made one of these which deserves a mention. The next title comes with a little bit of a caveat, since Pocket Rumble is a gorgeous retro pixel art entry with excellent mechanics and GGPO support, being an excellent fighting game with a nice variety of characters. However, it has quite a strange release, coming out on Steam Early Access in 2016, but does also have a Switch version, where there are no early access updates and the developer's last tweet was in 2019, so it does seem to be a dead game on the surface. However, what is there is good, with a small but active community, making it a title of interest. Now hear me out. Dem's Fighting Herds begin life as a My Little Pony fan game, but don't run away just yet, since the developers do know what they're doing. As with most fan games that get any traction, they were hit with a cease and desist, which led to them to remake the entire game with original characters using a variety of four-hooved animals, but the attention that the fan game garnered did get the interest of the creator of said series, who did go on to work on this game as well. While there are only 6+1 characters, the requisite technical framework is present, again having GGPO support, and even something called Juggle Decay, which prevents infinite combos, where a character's gravity gradually increases the longer they are in a combo. It has a Guilty Gear style online lobby, an extensive training mode, and even dungeons against AI characters which are different from the playable characters. All of that plus the fantastic art and animation makes it a no-brainer pick. There have been a significant number of anime fighters that have really taken off, like Guilty Gear, Granblue Fantasy Versus, and even Dragon Ball FighterZ, but let's talk about a little game named Under Night in Birth EXE Late CL-R. Anime fighters, in contrast to titles like Street Fighter or Tekken, are known for flashy, insane combos, aerial moves, double jumps, and of course, the anime aesthetic, where it's a specific type of subgenre within the fighting game community, and most amazingly, comes to us from Japanese developer Soft Circle French Bread, who is a relatively small team, last noted to be 13 people as of 2018. However, despite this, it made it to EVO's main stage in 2019, alongside absolute behemoths in the genres like Smash, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, and more, which have millions and millions of dollars and hundreds of people working on them, making the accomplishment stand out for a team of this size. Super technically sound as well, which makes it a cult classic, so definitely check this out if you have not. The next title is a little different in that Lethal League Blaze does look like a 2D fighting game, but where your attacks are transmitted through a ball that you're hitting back and forth. Not a traditional fighting game in that sense, but it shares many of the same ideas, where positioning and timing your special abilities is part of the strategy. It does have one of the most amazing looks and character designs, where every character is unique and feels interesting to play. Great soundtrack and world building as well, so for something different in the space, do give this a go. No list talking about indie fighting games will be complete without mentioning Rivals of Aether, perhaps the best example of the indie platform fighter that stars anthropomorphic animals, helped of course by the pixel art, so me being me, of course it gets a spot. However, more than the aesthetics, the developers have created a whole new set of characters which have become unique to their games and have become fan favorites, even crossing over into other titles as well. It is one of the most technically sound games in terms of platform fighter design, where this developer really knows their audience and the game they want to build. Great tutorials, crossover with characters like Ori and Shovel Knight, and even Steam Workshop support rounds off the package, making it a cannot miss for fans of the genre. And of course, Skullgirls' second encore is the indie 2D fighter to beat, having quite an interesting development story throughout the years with its share of ups and downs. Initially released in 2012, this has gone through lawsuits, a Kickstarter campaign, changing of publisher, and even the shutting down and recreation of the developer twice, and in spite of all of this, still sits atop the mountain of indie fighting games. This current version was released in 2015 and packaged all previous DLC characters into the base game, but it did announce a new season of 4 characters, but the timeless art and animation means that it still looks as good as it did on day 1.
Can you dig it?
There are currently 14 plus 1 character, all of which are unique, voiced, and have their own campaigns and cutscenes. Technically, the developers do know their stuff, with various balancing patches and tweaks over the past 9 years or so, meaning that it definitely has had plenty of time in the oven to be as good as it is.
Running wide.
If you heard the scuttlebutt around this game, don't worry, I've looked into it, and the wrong people are not benefiting from future purchases of this game, so if you have not gotten this for whatever reason, do pick it up, since for how great it is, it takes the #1 spot. For a look at upcoming fighting or beat 'em up games, watch these videos and I will see you after the jump.